Well, welcome audience members. Excited to kick off tonight's event where we're going to talk about what to expect before, during, and after either the rebuilding or the remodeling process, depending on what you're going through for your home, and try to help you identify some potential pitfalls and how to avoid any of those problems. So I'm going to introduce myself first, and then I will introduce our esteemed panel. My name is Jeff Haskell. I'm with a company called Builders First Source. So I'm on the supply chain side of things. So my company supplies materials. We will be supplying materials for a number of the homes that are being rebuilt in the fire area. I will be moderating this evening. So my esteemed colleagues this evening are S. Robert August of North Star Synergies. And Robert is coming to us with an expertise in a number of different areas. So he has marketed, promoted, worked with home builders associations on a number of innovative products. He's built homes, sold homes, and knows most everything there is to know in the home building industry. Very active in the Home Builders Association and has a number of connections. We also have with us tonight Jake Harris of Build Wallet, and Jake's area of expertise is in process, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, the things he's done to help people manage, identify, and organize their process, and also just in cash flow as far as it pertains to the building and the remodeling process. We also have Eric Lichtenstein with us, and he is actually a home builder in our market and is going to be well versed in all of the things that might come as surprises, because for those of you, which I'm assuming are many, if you've not been through the home building process, there can be some surprises and things along the way. So Eric is the owner of River North Builders, and which is a very high-end residential construction company, and he's focused mostly in the Denver metro area.
It's Eli, Jeff.
Oh, Eli, I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said Eric, it's okay.
Oh, geez, sorry, it is Eli. So folks, if you have questions, we're going to ask that you use the chat function. So at the bottom of the screen, you should see something that says chat. If you would like us to give you some follow-up information or provide some additional answers to maybe some things that might not come as an area of expertise for one of us this evening, if you would include your email address, we will make sure that we provide follow-up questions and any additional information that might be needed. So as you have questions, please pose those. And with that, if there are no immediate questions, we'll go ahead and kick things off with just a couple of general questions for the group. So as I mentioned, most people have not been through a home building process or a large home remodeling process. So it can certainly be a learning experience for anybody going through that and can present some surprises to those of you who have not done it before. So I'm just posing this to the board. What kind of recommendations, tips, advice would you have for the folks that are about to embark on this process to help them along this journey?
Well, I could start off, I think, right off the bat, it always seems to boil down to one point for me in having a smooth build process, and that is that it's very important to select the right builder. And in selecting the right builder, to me, the most important part of building is communication, because you're embarking in a very long relationship with your builder. And if you don't feel like you can communicate freely with your builder, voice concerns, you're not feeling like you're being heard, then that's going to be the first problem, is the breakdown in communication. So the best advice I can give, like, you can get through a lot of hurdles in construction as long as you're able to communicate with your builder. So first and foremost for me, that's always the first point.
Eli, are there any specific things you would encourage our audience to ask a builder or when they're in their vetting process that might be helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, beyond just that personal gut feeling that you get with a builder, you need to feel comfortable in front of them. You need to feel like they're listening to you, like that, you're not, there's not some sort of communication breakdown right away. But I think for me, what I would say one of the most important issues beyond that are process. Your builder has to know their own process in and out, and they need to be able to articulate that process to you guys as the homeowners to make sure that you're aligning your expectations, because you guys don't know what this is like. It's most people build a house, if they're going to build a new home at all, it's once in their lifetime. These are not situations that you're in often. So a builder needs to be able to clearly explain their process, and they should have it, broken down in simple to understand steps, so everybody's on the same page and everybody has their expectations aligned. So for me, it's first communication and comfort with your builder, and second, it's the process.
Robert?
Yeah, Jeff, thank you very, very much. Eli, your comments are absolutely exceptional and spot on for the audience. The audience has gone through shock and awe and still may be in that situation. Most of the families, the fire families that we've engaged with have never built before. So hearing from a custom builder like yourself, one who builds a one-of-a-kind home, or a home that meets the needs of the personal needs, is very important. I would like to share just a quick point. We have a home builders association that's representing you tonight through all of us. And our home builders association is approximately 80 years old. Our members have built more than 1 million homes in Metro Denver over those 80 years. And in essence, we have a very strong participation. We belong to a federation of 140,000 companies and over 10 million related employees. And I would encourage all of you that should you decide to rebuild or restore an existing home, that you work with any of the members that are on the call tonight, as well as other members within our directory. And you can get to our directory by hbadenver.com. And that's hbadenver.com. And the main phone number for the association is 303-778-1400. 303-778-1400. And we have ethics, and we have morals, and we have mores, and we watch out and make sure that all of our members are always doing the best that they possibly can. There's always going to be issues along the way, but when you're a member of a federation like this, you don't want to make mistakes. You want to do everything correctly, and you want to have the best sense of business development. So I would encourage all of you, if you have a chance to get to know Eli better, Jake better, certainly Jeff better with all of their practices. These are outstanding professionals. And what we've seen in recent weeks in Louisville, Superior, and Boulder County, we've seen builders come into the market who are not members of our association, take money from consumers, and go out of business once they had enough money that they felt that they didn't have to do anything. So in essence, our builders are here. They have been, as I shared with you, for many years. We're going to be here for a long time, building more homes in Metro Denver, more commercial buildings. And I just wanted to share with you, pick professionals that have the credentials, that belong to an outstanding trade association. And certainly, Jake, you might have some comments belonging to a series of trade associations to share with our audience today.
Well, I spot on, and I agree. And I think that those people who are proud of their craft and who want to be to grow and to grow better and to grow stronger will join associations. So if you're dealing with somebody who's not in any other associations or not a part of a group, there's usually a reason for that, because the pros hang out with other pros. We like iron sharpens iron. We come in and we learn more and we gain more, and we go to meetings and we learn from each other and we share ideas and we get stronger. Those are the people you're going to want to deal with. Somebody who's out there as a loner in this specific business is usually out there on their own for a reason. So feel free to ask the associational relationship, because those people who want to be associated, those people are associated, are there for the long haul. Someone who's there and doesn't have any associations, you may not find them tomorrow. So I would agree, and recognize the fact that not every contractor is made equal. Everyone has advantages, everyone has disadvantages. Ask the questions, listen to the answers, ask deep questions to really get to the heart of the matter. And you want to listen to those answers and figure out who it is you're dealing with sooner rather than later. You don't want to just sign a contract and deal with this on a cost basis, because the cost can be emotional, the cost can be time, the cost can be a lot more than just the dollars that are shelled out for the project.
Excellent point. And Jake, as a follow-up, one of the things that Eli mentioned, and I got it as Eli, not Eric this time, so I didn't miss it. He mentioned the importance of understanding the builder's process. And I know in some of our conversations, you have a very interesting take on process, and you've broken it down into chunks as you describe them, or chunking. So I was wondering if maybe you could speak to that, the quote chunking process, how you put that together, and what should these people be looking for as they're going through that. Well,
and Eli made a great point, and Edward Deming is a prolific writer on this topic, and he says if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. So he has a great point. So when you ask a builder for their process, someone like Eli, someone like myself, anyone who's been in the trade for more than a minute and is proud of their process will gladly put it on paper and walk you through the different steps that they're about to take in your home build. When I started, I being a geek on process, I started out and I actually tried to put all the different items and put them all in places. But by chunking these items, you're combining like type issues. And I've created a 7-phase house building process that groups and chunks these items together, which I would be happy to share with anyone. If you're interested, please leave your email in the chat and I will get you a copy of that document. But the opportunity is that it really comes down to 7 different phases. And I think we'll start there, and anyone can take these phases. And I'm not saying these are the ultimate phases. These are not the best. These are just that these were my phases. I own these phases. I knew exactly how they worked. Just like Eli has his phases, and any good builder is going to have their own. But you need to be able to ask that builder, what are your phases? What are your process? Show me how it works. And if you two can align and follow along, then you're going to reduce friction. You're going to reduce confusion. You're going to increase that thing. So I start out with demolition. That's a pretty simple one. Then you have the structure rebuild. The structure starts out in the dirt. You're talking about footings and ground, and it deals with all of the structure or framing all the way to the roof. And then phase 3 for me is my MEP rough-ins. That's mechanical, electrical, plumbing rough-ins. And that's all permitted work. And then while that's going on, I can start on the outside of the building, which is phase 4 for me, which is the envelope. That's the windows, the doors, the trim, those kinds of processes. And once I have my inside roughed in, that's when you're allowed to start your interior finishes. So starting from drywall and going through all of the trim packages, the doors, the insides, the crown moldings, the tile, all those interior finishes and interior finishes. And then you come into phase 6, which is your finals. So finals are your interior fixtures. That's your appliances, your plumbing fixtures, your electrical fixtures, and all those different things. So for me, and like I said, I see we've got one taker, but if you put your email in the chat or send out the information, I'll be happy to share this. Right now, it's about 190 items very detailed, very thorough. And I'm, to Eli's point, this may not work for everyone's, but I would love to share it because it starts the conversation and you're really getting an opportunity to kick it off. But I would share, Jeff, if you'll allow me one other minute, no matter what process you're doing, a lot of people get intimidated, and they get intimidated about trying to make a schedule or trying to make a process for any of this. And what I would say is, I've been through all of the top scheduling documents, all the top programs, everything else, but I cannot get away from simple 3x5 index cards. I love these things. And if you come to my office or hang around me for any more than a couple minutes, you'll find index cards on my person in some form or fashion. And the reason being is that index cards are an amazing way to start a conversation and to get your thoughts on paper. So when I start a project with anyone, this is a homeowner, this is a subcontractor, this is anyone, I'll pull out my deck of index cards, I'll grab a Sharpie marker, and I'll start to write down on just an index card a task item. Whatever the task item is, I'll write it down as a task item. And what this allows me to do, and just so you know I'm not fooling, here's my latest deck of index cards, right? But what this allows you to do is it allows you to have a tactile, physical, visual representation of the work. And then from these index cards, as you're writing the task items, you start to arrange them on the table. So I've had everything from a kitchen remodel with a client where we sat at their kitchen table and took out a deck of index cards and wrote down everything that needed to be done and physically moved them around the table, to the largest hotel renovation you can think of has been planned with nothing more than a deck of 3x5 index cards. And by moving these around and organizing them, and then at the end, you have a large table full of index cards, and you take a picture of that and you share it with the team, and that starts the conversation on a schedule. So a lot of people get intimidated. Don't become intimidated. Go to the store and grab index cards, start writing down everything you want, and then as you remember something, you just pop another one in, and then you can really start to move things around, and it allows you, your builder, and everyone involved in the situation to put their hands, which as I reminded Jeff, you and I spoke, most builders are tactile. They like physical things. To get somebody who's a tactile learner engaged with the process of creating a schedule, you're going to get a higher engagement model than if you're just speaking or even looking at something on the thing. So engage a physical tool like this, which is simple and easy to use. And I will be sharing the email information with everyone who's requested it. So that's two things that I've used over 15 years of experience, is to think of things in chunks, chunk down the process, find like things and put them together because they're easier to use, easier to execute, using those 7 phases that I showed and that I'll share. And then the opportunity is, if you get stuck, always revert back to your trusty index cards, and things become a lot simpler when they're written down and you can see them, as opposed to trying to talk about them in the abstract.
Yeah, Jake, I think that's a really interesting take. As you and I talked, I like a few things about that. Is that first and foremost, it's a simple way of doing it, because you mentioned you also work with Excel spreadsheets and put together monster documents, which certainly are much more challenging, or at least a lot more work to follow. Mm-hmm. And when you keep something as simple as on the index card, it's right there. And as you mentioned, it's tactile, so it's easy to reach. It's easy to adjust, and certainly keeps things front and center, and is something that it's portable enough that as you have future meetings with your builder, your modeler, you can bring that just about anywhere so that you can collectively look at those items.
And I would paperclip the ones that were similar together, right? So the opportunity was, again, if and Eli could back me up, if you're dealing in framing, you write out things that are framing, or you have the builder write out things that are framing. You say, okay, we're going to get these items done, right? We're going to take these 10 items or 12 items, and these are going to be our phase 2. And then you grab the next 10 or 12 like typed items, and these are going to be phase 3 or phase 4. So whatever you're calling it, whatever sequence you're doing, find a way to break down a larger project into smaller sequential chunks. And that's a way that you can keep your sanity you can understand, because then you can start to also break down from a material standpoint. The same process now gets chunked down to your bill of materials, your list of items that you need for those phases. So you can actually sit there and go, as a builder, I can say, okay, we're through phase 2. I'm going to need to make sure that everything on my list for phase 3 is on site, so that I'm not going to miss a beat or have to go run out to the store and get something or deal with a long lead time item. You can start to think of things in phases, and I find that that's a much more logical and sequential way. And then you take a long project, which, like we said, is a year or 2 year long project, whatever that may be, but you start to turn it into sprints. We're going to sprint through phase 2. So this is going to be a 22-day sprint to get from the beginning of phase 2 to the end of phase 2. And then we're going to get from the beginning of phase 3 to the end of phase 3. And that provides you the ability to measure progress, as opposed to what seems like a never-ending project.
Now, in that regard, about feeling overwhelmed in this process, I mean, there's thousands of moving parts, thousands of things that have to happen in a certain order. So it can be overwhelming. But I would definitely recommend, you guys as the homeowners, you shouldn't be carrying that burden on your shoulders, right? That's our job. That's the builder's job to be sure to be communicating what's going on. So in our process, before we even, get under contract, you're going to see a lot of this stuff spelled out. And just like Jake is saying, we group items. We use the NAHB cost codes essentially to group items, which is a very similar thing. There's phases of groundwork, foundation, rough ends, and we can talk about that stuff all day. But before, your builder should be making you comfortable with the process. So when you're interviewing them, if you ask them about questions about the build process, they should be able to break it down for you on a very high level, just like Jake just did with the different phases of building. And that's our responsibility, to keep track of and make sure you're understanding, at what phase we're going to be at what time. So with every one of our clients, we're going to be giving them a calendar that essentially says, here's this phase, it's going to go on for 60 days here, and then we're going to be in this phase for this time period. So you should have a good understanding, if you're working with a good builder, you should have a good understanding of what that process is like, just from having those initial conversations with them. I would also like to kind of rewind a little bit and talk a little bit about what it looks like to before you get to that stage. We're talking about building the physical structure on your lot, but what's all the process before then? So in that process, and in searching for a builder, we've done separate panels on finding a builder, selecting a builder, how to work with a builder. But I just want to kind of reiterate that there are a couple different options about the time in which you can select a builder. So in one sense, and a little bit more of the traditional sense, a client might be working with an architect all the way up until they're permitting the home through the building department. And then they start to receive bids from builders. Now, the advantages here is it creates kind of a more competitive nature between builders. And you get to compare more direct pricing between more builders, so you're getting the best price. But there are downfalls to that as well. And one of the major downfalls to that, and especially in this atmosphere, is the prices, both in materials and labor, are ever changing, weekly. And so it's very difficult for architects to nail down the exact price of the home that they're designing. So oftentimes we get clients, coming to us and wanting bids on a home, and we're, we, along with many other builders, are coming in over budget, and that's just because of the nature of the construction market right now. So in the case that we do come in over budget and all the builders are coming in over budget, you're really only left with one option, and that's to go back into the design and do what we call value engineering and start to, change the design of the home in order to better fit your budget. Now, like I said, that's kind of the more traditional way of selecting a builder, and that's kind of waiting a little bit longer before you select a builder. We prefer to work with architects from the beginning of a project, and so we like to build more of a feeling of a teamwork atmosphere. We like to interview with clients when they're at the same time they've just selected their architect, and the reason is because as a team, the architect, the client, and the builder can help that design go in the right trajectory, so we can be sure to be on budget for that client. So if we see that the architect is starting to design outside of the client's budget, we like to reel them back in and say, hey, listen, we're kind of trending out of budget on this. I think we need to do these 3 things in order to bring us back into the budget. And so working as a team, as a design build team, is kind of a newer way of working. And I think in this atmosphere, it's really valuable because builders, nobody has their pulse on the industry like builders do right now, as far as where prices are at, where labor prices and materials are. So I think that that's very valuable, and it'll save a lot of time because you won't have to revert back to the beginning of design and start changing things when you should be starting to build.
That's great. Those are great points, Eli. Building the team, putting the process together, constantly value engineering the program. Those are all great points. I have a question for Mr. Moderator, Mr. Jeff Haskell.
Yes, sir.
We're in the midst of what we call a supply chain disruption. Would you share with the audience also picking up on Jake and Eli's points about preparation and when it's appropriate to begin ordering materials through the builder?
Yeah, so that's something, and I was even going to pose that back to both Eli and Jake to see some of the specific items that they're seeing, because my company does not represent every piece of material that's going into a home. But as Eli alluded, right now, pricing, just supply chain availability, and labor markets are extremely volatile. And Jake and I were talking earlier today in the specialty area that I work in day to day is with windows, patio doors, and exterior doors. And we're sometimes given literally no notice, where one day we have products that are on a 10 to 12 week lead time and are informed the next day by the manufacturer that they're moving things out to 27 to 35 weeks. And that's the kind of volatility that we're seeing. On the brighter note, in the past several months, supply chain has eased just a bit with many products, not all. So some lead times are still going out. Some prices are going up, but in many cases, the market prices are coming down. That's the good news. Small percentages. The unfortunate news in that is they're still up in some cases 50, 60, 70% more than they were in 2020. So things are considerably more expensive now, and it's creating, as Eli mentioned, a situation where builders have to be on top of this almost on a daily basis, because things are changing so quickly, so that they can give their customers and clients the best possible estimate of where things are going to come in. But it does take constant monitoring, because the market just continues to go up and down.
I have a thought on that, and I would offer this, and I think it also plays to Eli's point of value engineering or value adding a project. A lot of times, and I'll offer this to everyone, a lot of times we as builders and contractors are very good at taking instruction. So we will, if somebody tells us they want a certain type of window, we just set about on a one-way track to get that type of window. But opening up the value engineering opportunity, I started to ask my clients on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this item for you? How much room do I have to work? If I can find a suitable alternative, you know, can I propose it to you? Maybe it'll be here sooner. Maybe it'll be here at less cost. Maybe it's currently available around the corner where the other one that you've specified is not. So what I would offer for consideration is that as you're picking items, as you're working with your architect, as you're working things through, start to quantify how important is this. So what we find is that I would tell people, I'm like, if you tell me it's a 7, 8, or 9 on the importance scale, I know that that's something that you feel very strongly about, and I need to make that happen for you. If it's a 4, 5, or 6, then this is something that you want, but it's up for negotiation. If I have a suitable replacement, I can offer it, and maybe that's less money, maybe that's shorter time frame, maybe that's readily available, or whatever the case. If you tell me 1, 2, or 3, I have even more room to provide an alternative or something of that nature. But what I think that we, and Eli, check me on this, what we do when we get a set of plans, a hard set of plans, is we understand that everything on those plans is written in black and white and in stone, and we have no wiggle room. Whereas if we're given a little bit of movement, we can actually value engineer quite a bit more. To Jeff's point about even the material itself, I've dealt with contracts with windows, and the windows were 18, 19, 22 weeks out, and the client said, well, I don't need that window, I just want a black framed window. And I said, oh, thank goodness, I have other options. I can steer us in a different direction. We don't have to have that window. But until you give me that kind of freedom, I'm going to get you that window. And a lot of people don't know enough to have that conversation. So feel free to talk to your builder and let them know where there is room and where there is no room, because we don't often have time to ask, because we're so busy trying to fulfill the order, as is Jeff, as is Eli, as am I, trying to fill the specific order, the specific SKU that was specified and given.
And I would add to that, the timing of when things are available now based on the supply chain and leads, because you've both talked about the importance of the process, is some of the things that might have come later in the decision-making process, or at least the critical decisions used to be later in the process because you could get things much more quickly. Whereas now, sometimes things, because they're further out, decisions are maybe having to be made in phase 3, where along with the phase 3 items, whereas they might have really been more of a phase 5 item previously. So just being aware of that, and that's again where you want to make sure you're going with a builder that's very attuned to the market, who is staying on top of those things, because it is truly evolving, sometimes on a daily basis.
And to that,
Process reorganization for what we're seeing: cabinets, windows, doors, LVLs, laminated veneer lumber, structural lumber. So the things that are more complicated in the build, okay, so things that either involve multiple facets, involve manufacturing stainless steel appliances, because the stainless steel has been impacted from overseas. But these are the things that we're seeing a much longer lead time on. I'm seeing people order them sooner and sooner. A great example is a friend of mine in Alaska used to order their cabinets after the framing was complete. They would verify the rough dimensions of the cabinetry based on the rough framing of the house. Now these cabinets are being ordered as they're pouring concrete. Okay, so they're not even waiting for the house to be structured before they're building the walls to the cabinet order, as opposed to building the cabinet order to the wall structure. So that's one great example of how our industry is shifting to meet the new generation, because this specific builder had homes that sat empty for 2 to 3 months due to cabinets not being ordered in time due to their old way. And that's how the builders are adopting and moving forward.
Yeah, and certainly if there's a cost to that when the building's sitting empty and not moving forward, construction loans et cetera, going out, not to mention the fact that just as labor becomes tighter and tighter, is finding people that are willing to return to a project after it sits for several months for, and not the cabinets are necessarily a small item. When you look at the entire build, it's a relatively small item that can have a major impact on the build process. I'm sorry, Eli, you had a
Well,
comment?
I was just building off of you there, Jeff, and what I was going to say was kind of circling back to the selection of the builder, and can't express the importance of that enough. But if you are interviewing a builder and they cannot give you a straight answer about how they are managing these times and these lead times, and can't field that question from you, that's a major red flag. Because in our pre-construction now, that's a primary part. Like these, we will outline exactly when we're going to be ordering what products, so we can have them there ready, managing these 24-week, ridiculous lead times. So any good builder out there should have an action plan in place to keep your project moving forward.
We do have a question from the audience. So one of our audience members has asked if we have an estimation on the cost of an architect as a proportion of the final cost of the entire building project.
Yeah, so in this question, there's not a real straightforward answer to this question here, but I'll do my best to kind of explain where this comes from. Just like in all parts of construction, there's different types of, so we've got different types of homes. You have the ability to work with architects that have existing designs that they might be modifying to put at a lot. So it's not really a full custom home. It's just kind of a modified home that they've already designed. So you'll be able to get some reduced fees on there. But really the best estimate that I can give to you on that proportion of the architecture versus the final cost is somewhere between the 10 and 20% range for a custom home.
This is Robert. On another note, I think Eli's points are well taken, and the percentages can be reduced based upon some variance. We do have architects that are members of the association that are also providing discounts through our trade and services working group. And so with those discounts, they will be less than what Eli is sharing. But again, it's determining who those architectural firms are. The other thing is that I would ask both Jake and Eli to share more about how to select an architect, a landscape architect, and an engineer. And it's the point not just being about price, but being about quality of work that will help you save time by having excellent plans that can be built faster.
Yep, most definitely. And someone who's familiar with what's going on here in the atmosphere. And so we have a member architect, Jason, and they are their firm is specifically focusing on rebuilding for the Marshall Fire families. And working with somebody like them who they've got multiple clients building right now. He himself is a fire family, so he's rebuilding his own home. My point is that people who are used to dealing with the special circumstance we have, because obviously this is all new to us. Each jurisdiction is doing certain things to help aid the process and make it easier. Robert and I were talking about, some certain waived fees from some of the jurisdictions and things like that. But working with an architect that is really well versed in the atmosphere of the Marshall Fire and what's going on is going to be really important. And that's going to save a lot of time. And, in a way, being able to save some of that time in the front end it is really going to compound as it goes down, because as the building starts to boom and become busy, there's possibilities of trades being backlogged, and so schedules getting pushed, inspection times may get pushed. I know that the jurisdictions have hired up to manage the demand from the Marshall Fire, but we still don't really know what that's going to look like in the peak of the construction, of the reconstruction.
For me, it comes down to deliverable. I look at what you're getting. So the best way that you can compare and find resources is to look at the deliverables that they've produced before. So every architect, every landscape designer, everyone, even builders, should be able to proudly point to work that they've done previously. And I think that starts the conversation, because if they can't produce, examples of work previously executed, that's a red flag. Number two is that if you're not happy with the work that they're showing off and it's not meeting your satisfaction, there's no point to continue the conversation. But then after you've seen their work, you verify that, yes, I would be happy to get something in line with this product, then you can start the conversation that Eli opened with about the communication and saying, is this individual in this team going to listen to me and customize what we want, or are they just going to try to steamroll and sell me into something that I don't want? So I would skip to the end, look at the deliverables, and then backtrack into the communication to understand if that's someone I wanted to work with.
Yeah, I would also share that it's important to get references, and not just get the references, but to call the references and look for and have the same pattern of questions that you would ask these parties. I like to ask the last five. I want to speak to the last 5 homes that a builder or an architect has designed, not their best, not something that was done in 2010, but something that was done in 2022. And by speaking to these individuals, they won't hold back. I mean, you can tell by their voice inflection. There's a great book for all of you. It's called Up Your Effectiveness by Judy Rickenbach, a young lady that lives in Arvada, I believe. And it's all about tacit communication and verbal communication, and how to distinguish what people are saying or their movements, like in a Zoom meeting like we're having right now. And so you'll look for these comments from the individuals that you speak to, and that will give you a very, very helpful understanding as you build the questions and get the answers that you're seeking.
Excellent. I do have one more question from one of the audience members, and I think I may have our panel members take this maybe directly to them, because I think he's already provided his email address. Is just curious what kind of fee would be charged from the builder to work with an architect that they're already working with, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
So as far as fees go, I mean, we can really go down a rabbit hole as far as different delivery methods that exist for construction. Now, I guess I can give a real quick overview of 2 contract types that you're going to run into in the process of building. And again, this is going to be when you're selecting a builder. This is something you need to talk about with them, is what contract type they're going to be using. Now for me, like I said, there's really 2 main types, and that's going to be a fixed fee price, or what's called also a lump sum, and then there's going to be a cost plus. This is often referred to as open book. Now, underneath the cost plus category, there's a couple different versions. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I will leave my email address. If you guys have further follow-up questions, we can dive down further. But the way a lump sum project would work is that a builder takes the time to fully price the entire scope of the home. And they give you one lump sum, and it's more like you're purchasing a product. They're saying it's going to be this amount of money and we're going to deliver this house to you. There's some difficulties in that as far as every single small detail of the home needs to be designed and specified for a builder to be able to give that price. And so it really slows things down in the front end. And also with the volatility, a lot of builders are really a lot less willing to do these sort of lump sum projects right now in this market. Now, the cost plus version essentially means that whatever the true cost of the construction of the home, that is the wholesale cost of the construction of the home, is essentially passed through right to the client. But the way the builder gets paid is that they charge a fee on top of that, a builder's fee on top of that. Now, two options for that is a percentage basis and a fixed fee basis. You're going to want to go with a fixed fee basis. A cost plus percentage basis, it does not align the goals of the client and the builder. Because if the builder takes too long and goes far over budget, the builder continues to make more money on that project. So it does not line our goals. So you're going to want to look for a cost plus fixed fee project. And that's saying the costs of the project are passed through to the client, and there's a fixed fee. So there, and that's just a negotiated fee before you sign the contract. And therefore, the builder is incentivized to finish the project under budget and on time, because the longer he takes to build the project, essentially he's losing money as the schedule falls behind. So with that said, there's no clear answer I can give you as far as what a fee would be to work with a specific architect, but that is negotiated with the builder ahead of time. A custom builder fee, depending on the complexity of the home and the duration of the project, can be anywhere between 10 and 18% of the construction costs. So if you're looking at hard construction costs, that fee would probably lie somewhere in there.
Thanks, Eli. And question, well, I'll see if any of our panel members are able to speak to this, but speaking of fees and financing and how things are paid, since many of these projects are going to involve insurance claims, or is there anything specific that would be different about this as far as draws or the process or how that would work, as our audience members have to work not only with finding draws, payments, working with the contractor, but also having the insurance impact?
Jake would be excellent to answer this question.
Robert's referring to my special project of working through the insurance cash flow model for this specific situation. So the short version of the answer is make sure to ask questions and get all your answers up front. I believe that the assumptions on everyone's part will burn this project badly. So make sure that all the assumptions are removed from the process. Make sure that all of the questions are asked, no matter how silly, no matter how simple, no matter how you think it's a common thing. Make sure to ask, make sure to document, make sure to review. I have gone through and have interviewed and reviewed no less than 40 different people in regards to not only this in specific insurance claim, but also all insurance claims. We gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience from the NAHB Associates, the National Association of Home Builders Associates, and they said that insurance work is a very different animal than the traditional building model, due to the fact that you have an outside source of capital dealing with the funding and the conversation that stems between the cost of the replacement cost value, the depreciation holdback, which is the money that they deduct for wear and tear on the home, and then the actual or market cost, and then how that flows into the builder's hands. And then there's a period of time where the costs that are spent can then be recouped against the replacement cost value in order to get it all back. So the Home Builders Association is charged us with putting this together. I'm in the throes of I have my draft out there for peer review. And then once the final comes in, we will be submitting that out and publishing it as builder insight on the insurance. But the takeaway is, make no assumptions. Ask questions, ask lots of questions, and make sure to get all your answers upfront.
Excuse me, Jake, excellent. Your information has been very, very helpful. Would you also recommend for people in dealing with an insurance company or any provider to get the remarks in writing? Absolutely.
I mean, again, document, ask questions, document answers, verify, getting these questions and answers. It seems the scary thing about this, and Robert, you and I have spoken about this, is that this doesn't seem like it should be a very obscure process. People have had insurance for years and years and years. Things have been happening to homes for years and years and years. There should be a fairly well documented, simple to follow process. And upon embarking on this challenge, this charge from the HBA Metro Denver group, which was to identify and document the cash flow model for an insurance restoration work and insurance rebuild work, there is nothing written down, and a lot of things are being left in the dark, I believe, to provide obscurity for this situation. But we took it upon ourselves to document this, to put it out there, and to establish a baseline for communication between the insurance company, the mortgage company, the homeowner, and the builder, so that everyone, like we talk about, can put eyes on a process and eyes on a document that can then say, well, we do most of this, but we change it here, or we don't do this, we do this. We need to start having the conversation now to understand the process, understand how the money moves, and understand how it would flow. Because again, nothing but disaster and pain stems from the idea of making assumptions and then not having those assumptions come true. And I think nowhere in my 15 years of building have I found such a problematic situation as an insurance distribution insurance distribution process. It's very, very scary. And I would say ask lots of questions and get them documented answers.
And who should be involved in that process? Is that just something that our audience members should be discussing with their insurance company, or is there somebody else they can involve to help them with that process to ensure that there aren't interruptions because of misunderstandings?
Well, we are going to do our best, Robert and I and the people, as we are trying to definitely document all of those questions. A good point was brought up the other day about insurance builders risk. What are the different policies? What are the different things? So I don't, to answer your question, Jeff, I don't know who else should be involved, because there's really not an outside advocate for anybody. I've heard public adjusters sometimes bring value, sometimes they make things more complicated. Consumer advocates can do the same. They can add value and they can be an advocate for the homeowner. Sometimes they can complicate things. So it's very, very interesting to me to look at how this works. I see Ellen's point about United Policyholders. We actually reached out to them and they actually want a copy of what we're building, because again, nothing like this exists. So, but I would say use common sense, dream up all of the scenarios that could happen, ask the questions, get the answers in writing, feel confident that what you expect to happen will happen, and take the word assumption out of your dictionary and don't do it.
Perfect. And I think that probably circles back to where you're making the selection of the right builder to make sure they're helping you with the questions that maybe you should be asking.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
can definitely, communicate too on behalf of the client. If there's any sort of draw schedule, I know there's been just such headaches about insurance companies wanting to see, cost estimations of what these homes were to build in, the 80s and all sorts of stuff like that. But when you do begin to work with a builder, they should be a very good asset for you to help, maybe clarify some things, and help out with some pricing information if that's the case, or whether it's what the draw schedule needs to be. Again, yeah, the builders are here to be an asset for you, and we at the NAHB are here to be an asset for you. So if there's any questions, that we didn't get to, feel free to email us or write them in the chat, and we can, of course, find the answers for you and get back to you on that.
Are there any other specific questions from our audience? You see that both Jake and Eli have put their information out there that they're happy to assist in any further way and answer additional questions that come up. Something just beeped. I have a couple more questions that could go to either, but I'm going to start with Eli on this one. Is this certainly is a unique situation, but in any building process, as I think you both have mentioned, it's likely something, this is a once in a lifetime event that they go through the building process itself. What would you say, and maybe this is case by case, but what are some of the biggest surprises, or what are some of the biggest challenges your clients run into as you go through the building process, that it just seems like as we go through this, it's, even though things are very well explained at the beginning, that as the process goes, because it can be a lengthy process, what are the big surprises or the big things that kind of hit people as they're going, and what kind of tips or advice would you give our audience today to help navigate some of those?
Gosh, well, I say, that's a great question. I think that understanding, that the build process is such a complex thing, and just trying to give grace. The builders, we're trying to give grace to the clients, and we hope for some of that in return, because I think really sometimes where we run into problems is that nobody wants to see hiccups or problems happen on the construction site. But like I said before, you've got thousands and thousands of moving parts. All of these things have to happen in a certain order, very specific. And we're all just human, right? So mistakes are made in the building process. And as much as we wish we could eliminate mistakes, and we do try our very, very best to spend a lot of time in planning and pre-construction to eliminate that, but there will be mistakes that arise. And so giving a little bit of leeway and just being understanding of each other in this relationship. Like I said, this is a year and a half, sometimes 2-year long relationship that you're embarking in. And so it's really important, it's really important to treat it as a relationship, and it's a give and take thing. So I would say to first of all understand that mistakes do happen. We try our very best to eliminate that, and we try our very best to be fair about how those happen. So that's kind of the big first thing. And I guess the second thing is when entering into a contract, they can be very lengthy contracts, and obviously new to many of you. Just be sure to ask questions if there's something that you don't understand about the contract, because what can happen if you just kind of again, assume that everything's going to be okay, and nothing in that contract is really going to come up, well, that's not always the case. And so when it gets down, we're halfway through the build process, and the understanding of change orders, for example, were not really understood. That can kind of start to cause some tension in that relationship. So if there's anything that you don't understand in that contract, be sure that you're able to speak up and have your builder, if necessary, explain each and every clause in the contract to make sure that you understand their process, right? When they give you a change order, what's that going to look like? What needs to happen? What are the client's responsibilities and what are the builder's responsibilities? And the more you can communicate that, I think the more you can kind of navigate those issues. But as I said, be understanding, because hiccups always will happen in construction.
So
Yes. Go ahead, Jake.
I have a great, I have a suggestion, and I think this will help everyone. Well, 2 points. When you have your meeting, understand the iron triangle of projects, and Eli will be very familiar with this one, but every project consists of 3 items, and we call it the iron triangle or the project triangle, whatever you want to call it, but it's scope, schedule, and budget. Don't leave the meeting without talking about scope, schedule, and budget. Okay, so whatever frequency you're having with your builder, always talk about scope, schedule, and budget, and make it an inceptual concept that you're not going to leave that meeting without talking about those 3 things. The next thing I'll clue into those people who are not builders by trade or don't deal in projects on an average basis is that there's something called an S curve. The spend of a project is spent on an S curve, which means that it starts out very small and very slow, and then it gradually and rapidly peaks, and then it peters back out and actually forms an S. If you don't understand the cash flow of a project, and I maintain that 75% of project problems are cash flow related, either bad cash flow from the lender, bad cash flow from the owner, bad cash flow management from the builder, you name it. But my hypothesis has maintained that 75% of the problems on a project are due to bad cash flow management. So understanding how the money is spent in this S curve will provide leaps and bounds beyond what most people understand about projects. And if you as the owner, if you as the builder, if you as the sub, if you as the insurance company understand the S curve of a project spend, you'll understand the demands that happen. And what happens a lot of times is builders that don't understand their own cash flow commingle and pull money together, and then all of a sudden they're upside down on a project. They can feel it, but they don't know why. They feel like they're upside down on the project, and then they start to have animosity towards the client because things are asked for and they're like, wait, I'm already over, I can't give you anything else. And that's at the critical point of the end of the project. And when I've spoken about this before, there was once a lady, and I love her to death, but she stood up and pointed to me like she had seen a ghost. And I said, are you okay? And she goes, I just finished 5 jobs with 5 different builders, and I was about to quit building because I thought it was me. And she goes, what you're saying is exactly where we had the problems. We went to war at 75% of the project being complete. We went to war over this thing. And now that you lay it out like this, I see that it's a cash flow problem. They didn't know their own cash flow. They were getting mad at me. I was getting mad at them. I was trying to hold back money so that it would push them forward to completion. Meanwhile, they're in the throes of large financial commitments with all the finishes and all the fixtures and all the expensive stuff. Understanding cash flow simplified everything, and now she's a very successful developer. But I think that that's something, by having those conversations and getting down to the nitty-gritty and understanding the cash flow process, you will elevate the conversation. You will have a much more sophisticated conversation and make that all work. Sir
Robert, you have a follow-up?
Excellent points, gentlemen. I would also share with you, having had the opportunity to market and sell thousands of homes many of which were certainly custom, one-of-a-kind homes in many communities throughout Metro Denver and also the United States and globally. We find that the issues, some of the issues come up. Everybody's memory seems to be short whenever there's an issue. And one of the things that I would advise, whether you're, regardless of how you move forward with a builder, the most important thing for me when it comes to defining the ladder process and getting to that agreement is actually having the builder or a builder's representative go directly through that agreement and sign off on each paragraph that you as a buyer understand each paragraph. If you don't understand the paragraph, if you don't understand the agreement, don't sign it until you get all of your explanation. The other point is that if I've done a good job as a builder or as a builder's representative explaining the process, we're setting these expectations early on when we first meet with you, and then we're repeating them to you as Eli and Jake and Jeff so aptly explained the process earlier tonight, and making sure that once again, you understand the process. Because if you don't, it's not, this is a very, very complicated industry to a degree. And what most people don't realize is that the expertise of both Jake and Eli and that of Jeff is phenomenal. These gentlemen are dealing as builders with sometimes 100, 125 vendors, manufacturers, trades to build one home. And so there's a lot of parts that go on. The average home is built with 300,000 independent pieces. And so working and getting all of your answers up front and also throughout the process, you can't be expected to memorize and remember everything that Jake and Eli and Jeff know. So one of the key things is that the builder who will represent you needs to be very open and genuine and very caring and considerate, because as Eli pointed out, there will be mistakes on both sides. But working with professional builders like Eli and professionals like Jake and Jeff, mistakes will be reduced dramatically, and you won't experience negligence, for the most part. So those are things that come to mind for me. Always ask questions, and make sure that your builder is always asking questions to ensure that you're comfortable, with the process on a daily or weekly basis, and that there's no concerns by any of the parties. Because as it was pointed out earlier, all of a sudden people will start pointing fingers at one another, and that's not what you want. You want this to be a wonderful, caring, considerate relationship in building a home together with all the teams and all the participants involved. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome. So there is one more question from the audience that's directed to Jake. And I don't know, Jake, if you can see that in the chat regarding whether or not the expectation or the expectation from the insurance companies that they're going to want to see every monthly draw that is being paid out to the builder.
I messaged Janet. We'll talk offline. That sounds
Okay.
like an individual question. Again, there's every insurance agent and every bank and every group will have their own thing. Understanding the expectations, not making assumptions, and then gaining clarity. Because if you have a question, ask the question. All too many people hold back their question, and they need to ask it and gain clarity to where they understand the process. Don't be shrugged off. Don't be blown off. Make sure that you have a full understanding of that process and that you understand it, and don't stop until you do. That's what needs to happen.
Thank you. So last question that I had is, we've talked a lot about pre-process and making sure you're vetting the people that you're working with, what to expect, or at least start to expect through the process. But once the home is completed, what things should our audience members be asking, looking at, or what tips might you have at the conclusion of the project that they might want to be looking at?
You want to go? You want to take this one, Eli? I'll follow up.
Go ahead, Jake.
So closeout binders are awesome, and they encapsulate all of the information. I call it a project in a binder or a project in a box, right? So you want to gather all that information and catch as much of the material as you can. And there's two things that I would like to mention is that there's really a value, whether your builder does it or whether you do it, right before drywall. I point to go through and videotape the homes and document the layouts, document the pathways of the pipes, the locations of all the boxes, and that has saved my bacon more than once. In knowing where the blocking is for my shower bars, all that kind of stuff. So as a tip and a trick is that as you're pulling together, and that will help you long down the line, right? Because you're not going to remember where that 2x4 was. But I would recommend that to go through right before drywall and videotape the whole house, and talk through it while you're doing it, and then gather all that material into a closeout binder, make a file, keep everything safe, and therefore you can go back and refer to that at any point in the future for warranty information, parts, pieces, paint colors, all that kind of stuff you want to capture.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Robert?
we also have a member by the name of Front Steps that has a program where they work in tandem with a builder, and they keep 100% of all the records of the home. So everything that Jake just described, they have that. They're working today with over 5 million homeowners throughout the United States. They're also working internationally. And it's a fascinating program. So for example, if there's a Benjamin Moore color paint that you got in 2020 or 2020, whatever the date was, they know how to help you find that paint and match it to the right PMS colors. The other thing is that the program is very inexpensive for the consumer once a consumer takes over the home. And it also helps you the same way that there's Carfax. This is almost like Housefax. So you can transfer all this information from, let's say you live in the home for 5 years. Then you all the things that you do for repairs or additions, maybe you change the carpet, whatever it might be during that time period, it's then transferred to the next buyer of the home, who gets 100% of the records from your previous 5 years of ownership. So they know, they know if there was an issue with the plumbing or the heating, venting, air conditioning, et cetera, that Jake pointed out. And it's a very clever program. But in addition to all of that, you also need to, in the very beginning, one of the questions that you would want to ask a builder, share with me the building process as Eli and Jake have shared, especially with Jake's chunking process. And then also ask early on, not 6 weeks after you've signed an agreement, but you want to find out about that warranty, for the home. You want to understand what is a warrantable item after a set period of time. And so you're not blindsided walking through and finalizing the purchase of the home, but you're aware of this in advance. And the builders who have almost all the builders that we represent, I think every builder that we've ever represented through the Home Builders Association of Metro Denver, they all have warranties. They all have their own insurance policies, and you want to check on that as well, because some of these companies, they're not as professional as Eli's company and Jake's company, and certainly Jeff's company. You may not be, you may be in for a disappointment, but working with professional companies that are members of our trade association are going to give you a wonderful, hopefully a wonderful experience and a home that will yield positive and productive memories for you for generations.
Yeah, and it looks like Jake just put the information out for the group with some information about how to do that in an organization that will collect some of that data for you.
That's the entity that Robert was just talking about, ResDocs, and they're Trishelle and Damian Spencer, great company, great people. Yep, awesome stuff.
Thanks for both for mentioning it and providing it.
Yeah.
Eli, would you have anything to add to what Robert and Jake?
No, I was just going to head straight into the warranties there. That's always, like Robert was saying, it's very important to understand your builder's warranty when you're interviewing builders. They should have a written, and that's important. You don't want to be doing it off of handshakes or what they say they're going to do. You want to see a written warranty that you're going to put your signature on, and that builder's signature is on. And it needs to explain what items are covered under the warranty and for how long. And that's just a really important process in the part in the vetting process. Besides that, it's always important for a builder to give you a new home orientation. You want the builder to walk you through the home. Builders work with all of these products every day, all day. So we know how to work most of the products, the appliances that are going in, the fireplaces, whatever it may be. It's the builder's responsibility to walk you through and make sure you understand how your home works, your HVAC equipment, any of the MEP equipment, any specialty lighting, and that'll all happen in that home walkthrough. Which is a really important part. And that's when we transfer over all that information, like you're saying, Jake. We transfer over our build book, our binder full of every single product that's in there, every single paint color and finish and all of that stuff. So it's all kind of a big ceremony. So that's kind of the end all be all.
I like that that closing statement, that it really is, it's a ceremony and a celebration to be able to get into a new home and have somebody walk you through and show you all the great features that you've taken time to select and how to maximize their benefits and uses.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like that, the ceremony. That's great. Well, Robert, Jake, and Eli, I don't know if there's anything else that you would want to share with our group about the process and avoiding pitfalls, or if our audience has any additional specific questions that they would like to see if we could answer.
Well, like I said, if anything pops up, all of our email are in the chat there, so feel free to drop any of us a line, and we can answer anything if you have any further questions down the road.
Not being from Raleigh, not being from Denver and being from Raleigh, I'm not personally affected by this situation. But I am incredibly impressed with the way that the HBA has stepped up and has done an amazing job and is making, is working with us to make sure that we're available to answer questions for everyone. I love the opportunity to volunteer and to help and to do cool stuff that will be documented and not only used for this disaster relief effort, but we're handing it over to the NAHB's disaster relief so that we can go ahead and do and have this information pre-printed and readily available for like the people in Tampa or the people in Oregon or wherever the next disaster goes. So this industry, this group, this Home Builders Association group really does care. And I'm really thrilled to be a part of them. And I think they do an excellent job. And Robert, you get absolute cheers for continuing to press on bringing the best out of all of us and encouraging us to add more value than we even thought was possible. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you all very much. In parting, it's been great working with Eli and Jake tonight, along with Jeff. And I would encourage all of you that are listening, if you like what we've had to share this evening, we have more educational programs in our series through October 18th. So look at the schedule, register, encourage your friends, your neighbors to attend the programs on behalf of the Home Builders Association. as a volunteer. It's a great organization, as Jake and Eli and Jeff have shared. And we encourage you to reach out to our directory. It's hbadenver.com. Look at, go / into directory, member directory. You'll meet a lot of individuals. We also have a website for the Marshall Wildfire Disaster Relief Task Force that we've created. And in there, you'll find additional discounts from many of the folks that are members. And if you find a member that isn't listed with a discount, all you have to do is ask them, what is your Marshall Wildfire discount? And Jason Serbu, who couldn't be with us tonight, he, as an architect, is providing discounts for the architectural services and would have shared that with you this evening. But once again, we thank you for the time today. I'm turning the program back to Jeff. Thank you for being such an outstanding moderator. Eli and Jake, your participation has been just quintessential. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just an absolute wealth of information that was provided tonight. As with any of these things, I certainly learned a lot from everybody involved. Lots of great things shared, and I'm hoping that this helps everybody as you move forward with the rebuild or remodels of your homes. And again, want to echo the thanks that we've all said to the HBA of Metro Denver. It is really pretty remarkable that they're pulling all of this together, this entire series, with a number of exceptional topics. And I think it's fantastic that the model that we're putting together here is going to be used nationwide and probably internationally. So we did have one more question from the audience. Somebody wanted to know if we are familiar with the Heart and Home Initiative / Captain program.
I'm not, but I wrote it down.
Me too.
No, unfortunately I'm not. I'll check it out as Jake will and Eli. Thank you.
Yes, a big thank you. And Eli, I appreciate you getting on and sharing your wealth of information, and hopefully the things go well for you, Jake, out on the East Coast, and that the hurricane is going to avoid North Carolina, at least to some degree. Yep, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Jeff, I'm sorry. I do know one initiative. One of the fire families is creating a program called the Living in Place Institute Idea Home. And it will be a state-of-the-art home to teach people how to live in a home that's accessible from cradle through grave. And in essence, it's very, very unique. I'm involved with working with the Delaware family. Louis is the president of Living in Place Institute, Louis, Delaware, and his wife Judy, and Louis and I have been working for the past 9 months in designing, and now we're getting ready to have the Delawares exercise the building permit and work with one of the outstanding builders in the training area, who's also a member of the association. So you'll start seeing a lot of information shared through the HBA and also directly to all the fire families and businesses. And Louis is our educational co-chairman who helped put together the programs that you're all enjoying. And thank you very much, Jeff.
So, any closing comments? I think we've had several. So again, want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Hopefully you took away from it as much as I did, because certainly I did learn a lot. Wish everybody well in your endeavors as you move forward with your respective projects. And again, want to thank our panel members for volunteering your time tonight to help everybody, and certainly encourage all of you to reach out to them. And as Robert has pointed out, they're a part of a very professional organization where they're vetted, they're ethical, they're going to answer the kind of questions that they've encouraged you to ask whomever you're working with. And these are the kind of professionals that you want on your team.
Very much.
Yep, here to help.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Everyone have a great evening and a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.